Hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and today we have a preview of The Mix. Hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, and welcome back to the Board Game Co channel. Today we have a preview of The Mix by Roost Games. Now, this is the current Game Found campaign, so you can check out the link down below for everything that they have planned. This is a sponsored video, and this is also a demo copy in front of me, so all rules, components, things like that are subject to change. Now, in The Mix, you are playing competitively as different mixologists that are all new recruits to the Foxtrot Bar, and you're trying to make the best cocktails and have clients adore you, because hopefully you'll be able to gain money from the drinks that you're able to serve with a little bit extra of a tip as well, and all of this is going to work toward victory points for players toward the end of the game. Now, the pacing of the game is that players are all going to have their own individual rounds where you have your own worker placement that you're going to be using that to take different actions, but you're also engine building and working on resource management because as you're gaining these ingredients for the drinks that you're trying to serve, you only have so many places to put it, either in the drink or a small amount of inventory. So players are going to get better and better with their technique at how good they are at making these drinks, from the way they stir it to the ingredients that they're able to add, and with that everyone is trying to get the most victory points by the time 15 clients have been served. Now, in front of you, I have the game set up for 3 players and 1 player board showing over here. So a couple things to note before we go on with the preview is there are a few small components missing. As I said, definitely check out the Game Found link to see all of the final components and what they're intended to look like. But there is a shared Fox token, which I'm using this gray scoring token instead. These are the scoring tokens for other players, so we are using that as the Fox token, and that would be used to track how many clients have been served, because endgame is going to trigger when 15 collective clients have been served, whereas as you can see, players are also going to individually track how many clients they're serving, because there are bonuses either for the individual player or for the group collectively, depending on which side of the track you're looking at. And in a 2-player game, it will end after 9 clients have been served instead. Another thing to note is there are glass holders that will hold these ingredients to kind of be served inside of a glass, and I do not have those in front of me here, as well as shaker tokens. So I am using these gray cubes as an example for the shaker tokens, but again, check out the link because there are tokens that are shaped like shakers that look like this that are very thematic. Now, looking here at the main board, this is the general score track because players are going to gain victory points both throughout the game as well as during end game scoring. So that's going to be tracked along this row here. And then in the center is the market of cards that players are going to be working with. So there are going to be a handful of actions that players are going to be able to do on their turns by placing their mixologists, and we are going to go through all of those, which 6 of them are here on your player board, and then 3 of them are placed here throughout the board. But just note that one of the actions you're going to be able to do is acquiring these different client cards, which you are then trying to serve. So the cards are going to be in 3 different decks depending on their different level, which you'll have access to, but then you also have to have a technique level, which will be this die tracked here, and as you increase that, you'll be able to have access to more and more clients. Now, speaking of, these are the techniques that players are able to gain, and this symbol here shows that you will increase your technique die when you gain that. So you would increase this here and place this card down into this area. But again, I'll get into the exact actions and how you're going to do that in a moment, but just know that these are the cards that you're going to be gaining to add to your techniques, which are going to help you at the end of your personal rounds during the setup, and these are the clients that you're going to be trying to obtain to then serve. Now, the ingredients that you use throughout the game are going to be extremely important for what all of these cocktails need. So there is going to be the supply as well as the store, and different things are going to interact with these. So the supply is limited, as you can see, but the store here is where players are going to be able to refill the supply as well as do a couple of other things with it. Now, finally, players have 1 spot where they're able to serve a client, which they would take the client card as well as one of those glasses to be able to add their ingredients to it, but players are also able to buy another bar stool for themselves. So this is a spot that players are able to go to, and when they do, they're able to take this and add it to their player tableau area to be able to serve 2 different clients. So now that you understand a bit more about the board, I'll talk about what your different turns are going to look like. So players are going to have their own individual rounds. So for example, when you start the game, you have 3 mixologists, and on your turn, you're going to be placing 1. You have 6 actions that are available on your player board, which I'm going to go over in a moment, but then there are 3 other actions that you're also able to do when placing them. So again, you have the 3, and then after that, you'll go to your setup turn instead, which is going to complete 1 round for yourself. Now, the reason it's kind of called that is because you do get a 4th mixologist, and when you unlock that is going to change for different players, so then your rounds may become offset. And something that's very interesting is the end game is triggered when 15 clients are served, but then every player is going to play until their next setup. So if you have any mixologists that you can still place, you are able to do that before the end of the game actually triggers, hopefully banking yourself a few more points, especially with your setup abilities, which are going to give you points. So with that, the 3 actions that you're able to do that aren't on your player board are going to be refreshing the client cards, gaining that bar stool, and also refreshing the supply with the store. So those are the 3 things that players are able to do with their mixologist placing it out along the board. So now I'll go through all of the ones that are on your player board instead. Now, at the beginning of the game, players have a choice of 2 of their starting cards. So as you can see, we chose to start with this card, which is going to give us this ability during the setup turn of our round, which I will get to in a moment. But looking at our 6 available actions here, as I noted, another thing that you're able to do is those 3 places on the board where you're able to either reset the client cards, refill the supply, or take a bar stool. But otherwise, players on their turn will use one of their available mixologists to place one of these. Otherwise, if you do not have one available, you'll have to go on to your setup turn. So looking at the first action available here, that's going to be gaining a client card. So looking over here, based on your technique level, you're able to gain a client card. So for example, we may choose to gain this one over here and place it over at this bar stool, and this is when you would place a glass with it. Now, that would be one worker placement for us and a turn, and then this would refill for other players. And another action that you're able to do is going to be taking ingredients from the supply. So if you place this over here, you're able to gain 2 different ingredients from the supply area. Now, when you do this, you're able to either add it into your supply area or into a glass that you are currently serving. So if we were to take this action, then we would choose to take these 2 over here and place it over here into this current card. Now, the next thing players are able to do is take an additional tip die, which is going to help you gain even more money when you're serving your drinks. So that's going to be from this supply over here. These are going to be the tip die, which have either a 1, 2, or 3 money symbol, and you're able to take this and bank it over here into your shaker jar. Now, the next action is going to be preparing a cocktail to serve it to a customer. So here where we can serve our gin and tonic, because we have this over here in our supply, we would be able to do this action by spending a shaker. So again, this is not the actual shaker tokens, this is just a placeholder, but you would have to spend a shaker token and then serve that current customer. Now, when completing this client card, you would discard these ingredients and automatically earn the $4 and roll 1 tip die. So you would roll the 1, but if you have additional banked, you are able to roll those as well. So if we were to roll both of these for this roll, we would add $3, meaning that we would be able to discard these. We would bank $7 for serving this, and then we would place this into our play area, freeing up this spot. Now, one thing to note is there are also instant abilities that happen when you gain those client cards. So anything on this side would happen immediately when gaining that client card. And for example, this one here is gaining 1 ingredient from the store over here. So you can see where that's something that affects the store as opposed to the supply. Now, next is the technique card, which players are only able to gain 1 per turn, and it will cost them a shaker, but players are able to gain 1 of these technique cards, which is going to allow them to increase their technique die, but then it's also going to give them an ongoing ability as well. Now, those would be placed down at the bottom of your player board over here that is a little bit cut off from the camera, but just to show you one over here, when we go over the setup phase, I'll show you exactly what this one would mean. And with that, we would replace this card here, and we would also get to increase our technique die. Now, finally, the last action spot is going to be acquiring shakers because, as you may have noticed, certain actions require them. So placing here is going to allow you to gain a shaker instead. Now, again, one thing to note is that I did walk you through all of the actions, but I did only move this one mixologist down just for you to track where I was going. But throughout your turn, you're going to be placing these, acquiring your client card, then on the next turn, perhaps you're gaining your technique, and then on a next turn, perhaps gaining some ingredients for yourself. This means that throughout the different actions that players are taking, it may take you multiple rounds before you are able to complete certain cards, but all of this is going to work toward your engine building, which is going to be extremely helpful, and a lot of it is going to pay off during the setup turn, which I'm going to go over now. Now, taking a look here on your player board, it actually walks you through your setup phase bit by bit so that you can see everything that you're meant to do. So the first thing is activating your completed client cards, which are going to give you this ability here. So for example, this gin and tonic is now giving us 1 shaker every setup phase. After that, you'll activate your bar spaces, which are going to be this symbol here, and you're going to be able to gain the things listed here, or if you have a bar stool as well, you're also able to gain the additional shaker. Then players are going to be able to activate those technique cards I mentioned. So here, up to 2 times, you're going to be able to pay $2 to move your technique die. Now, that's going to be moving this around this board here. And when you do that, wherever you land, you're going to gain that thing. So you could potentially gain ingredients, shakers, victory points, or money for yourself. So that's going to be something that players are trying to do, as well as a tip die down here. Now, after that, players are going to have to pay their upkeep, and for that, for each of their bar spaces, they're going to have to pay $2 for a maximum of 4. For their third technique card, that will cost them $2, and having a third ingredient in their personal supply will also cost $2. After that, players are going to be able to activate their setup effects from any expansions that they might be playing with, and then you're going to retrieve your mixologists. So you'll either take them off of your player board if that's where they've been placed, or off of the main board area. And then after that, you'll get to choose one type of ingredient and refill all tokens of that to the supply. So that's one way that players are going to be taking tokens from the store and adding them into the supply. But again, you're only choosing one, so you may choose one that's working toward something that you need and things that players may not want themselves. Now, on a player's turn, you are doing those main actions with your worker placement with your mixologists, but you're also able to do one additional action as well that doesn't require your mixologist. So it wouldn't be during a setup turn, but during a typical turn when you're taking one of those 9 actions available, you're able to do some additional actions as well. And one of them is going to be paying 2 shakers to take 1 ingredient from the supply. So you would have to have 2 shakers available, and then you're able to take an ingredient from the supply over here in this area. This is the store, but you'd be able to take it from the supply. Another thing, though, that you are able to do is buy ingredients from the store, and that's going to cost players $5 to do so. Now, you're also able to pay 1 shaker to refresh the client cards, so you're also able to do it in that sense if you have a shaker available. And you're also able to always pay $5 to gain a shaker. Now, again, not always. You have to use that as your additional action, and you're only able to do 1 additional action per placement with your mixologist, but either way, that's something you're able to do to hopefully gain a shaker, especially if you want it for a particular action. Another thing that players are able to do as one of these additional actions is they're always able to exchange 2 identical ingredients for 1 from the store. So you are always able to make a little bit of a conversion of a 2-for-1 with the store if you're able to do so. Now, throughout the game, players are also going to gain bonuses as clients are being served. So you are tracking how many clients are being served, both collectively and as a player. And as you start serving more as an individual, you're going to gain experience. So there are going to be these experience tiles that are either going to give you ongoing or one-time effects, and they're going to be very powerful, and they represent you getting better and better at your job and becoming more experienced. So with that, I'm going to go over what that looks like on your player board, because that's how you unlock your 4th mixologist. So here you can see that track that I was talking about, and the top track is going to be a benefit that all players will gain, but the bottom track is going to be individual as you start serving clients. So you can see that once you've served 2 clients, you're going to gain an experience tile here, and these are going to be slotted into your player board. So here you can see that there are going to be choices for you available as well, but I'm just going to slot a few of these in here, and then I will go over what the abilities are going to look like. So we'll put these all in here and then place our mixologist available in the supply. Now, looking here at our level 1 ability, this is going to be triggered when taking a client card from the board. So whenever you would do that, you would gain an additional $2, meaning that you're going to want to gain more. Now, there are some that are going to provide things when you take a technique card instead, so just note those are the 2 different types of cards that these are going to be working with, as well as gaining things from the store. Now, the level 2 experience tile is going to be when completing a client card instead, and you'll gain a victory point. So that's going to be an example of victory points that you're gaining throughout the game. And then additionally, the level 3 experience tile is one that you're going to have a one-time ability with, and then you're going to place a token to show that you've used it. So for example, this one is going to allow us to gain 2 shakers, but we're able to choose when we want to use that and then bank it. Another thing to note is that here our inherent ability as a mixologist is that when we acquire a technique card, we'll gain 3 victory points. So that's another way that we would be gaining victory points throughout the game. Now, finally, as I said, endgame is triggered once 15 clients are served, but all players are going to be able to finish their current round until their next setup, gain any benefits from their setup turn, and then the game will be scored. So during final scoring at the end of the game, players are going to get victory points for a few things. One of them is going to be 1 victory point for every 2 money, 1 victory point for every shaker, 1 victory point for every remaining ingredient, as well as the number on their technique die. So for as many as they're able to increase on their technique die here, they'll gain that many victory points. For example, if you're at 4, you'll gain 4 victory points at the end of the game, and players do max out at 6 on this die. Now, finally, there are these cards over here, and this is where players are going to be getting a ton of victory points as well. So you're going to get victory points for the clients that you have completed. For example, for 1 card, you would get 4 victory points, but for 5 of them served, you're going to get 24 victory points. So you're going to want to serve as many as possible because that's a huge chunk of victory points, as well as the different techniques that you have gained. So if you have only 1 technique card, you're only getting 4 victory points. If you have 2, you're getting 10, but if you have 3, you're getting 16 victory points. So that's absolutely huge. And then you're getting the same number of victory points for experience tiles. So for each of the experience tiles that you are able to gain, you're either going to get 4, 10, or 16 victory points for those banked as well. Now, lastly, those X tokens up at the top left corner are going to be penalty tokens. You're going to get -1 victory point for every penalty token you have, and those are going to be gained during your upkeep phase when you aren't able to pay for certain items. In the mix, players are going to be playing a very tight game of resource management because you are building out this engine, and your setup turn is honestly just as engaging, if not better, than some of your action turns because you are building up toward all these things that you're trying to do, but you're only able to serve 1 to 2 clients at a time, and you're working with a limited number of things you're able to hold over round. So you're really trying to play this balancing act of what you're able to serve to these different clients and the abilities that they're able to give you, both immediately when you acquire them as well as when you serve them. But as you saw with the scoring, it's very, very important to gain these technique cards because they are going to make those setup turns better, and they're also going to give you a huge chunk of points at the end of the game, as well as your different experience tiles, which are really going to be worth it. Now, players are getting those shared bonuses, so as everyone is serving clients, it is beneficial for you, but you definitely want to make sure you're working toward serving all of your own clients because they are going to give you endgame scoring, but you're also gaining those abilities throughout the game as well, such as your experience tiles. So you definitely want to hit those triggers once you're scoring those different clients and getting those cards out. It's very easy from the board to see exactly who's ahead with scoring the different clients and how close you are toward triggering endgame as well. So piecing out your different turns and hopefully starting a new round when endgame is close to being triggered can be very advantageous for you as well, because you may get a few more turns than other players if you've just had your setup turn before this is triggered. But in my opinion, rolling the tip die when serving clients is one of the most fun parts of the game, because it does give you that shaking sound. They look like ice cubes and they just feel very thematic, that these are also just a fun part to be playing with throughout the game, and it'll gain you some extra money to hopefully maybe buy you a new ingredient or pay for your upkeep costs, because you want to be sure to do that so that you aren't taking any of the penalty chips. Now, this has been a preview of The Mix. You can check out the game found link down below for everything that Roost Games has planned. I've been Professor Meg. Thank you all for watching the Board Game Co channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye!